Yeah, so we just tackled an awesome clicked session where we took requirements defined by we had a specific scenario where we were given four requirements, and what we did was we demoed how you can use GPT to build out the actual business documents that would go with those requirements if you were truly doing that in a real situation for a real client. We went through and created that requirements and design document, or at least we showed you how you can get that template. And like we packed so much within just into that hour. We walked through actually generating the requirements and design document, going through and brainstorming different ways to solution for requirements, which is extremely helpful. Um, we went through actually starting we started the process of filling out the document with the actual requirements and solutions that we would perform. We even took a dive and attempted to create, it was a little bit challenging under pressure there, but those test scripts for actually checking to make sure those requirements were met, solutioned correctly within Salesforce. What else did we do? We talked about so much. We talked about GPT. We talked a little bit about the behind the scenes of GPT and the types of responses that it gives you and why. We talked about just so many things. We picked one of the, I was really hoping that we would have time to go through the four requirements. Those four absolutely solutionable with GPT. We ended up with one. I'll tell you that as soon as we dropped from that call, as soon as we dropped from the click call, I jumped right back into it. And let's see if I should share my screen to get this done. Automatically start screen sharing. Why not? Hey, Rami. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to share here and we're just going to show you. So where we left off was we were working on this B2B lead score. As soon as we got off the call, I was like, oh no, we were so close. We were so close. And I wish we were going a little bit slower. I would have spotted the mistake. But what I did was is I copied this last line. It had if contains text. It was looking for text in that title. When you do the text function, the text is actually looking for, let's see, where are we here? Their text function. It's actually looking for a value here. So that was the incorrect function for this type of formula. So contains instead of text, that was the solution. We were one step away from getting that final solution. So I made that one change. I went to GPT and asked for it to fix that syntax. I just removed the text block. I knew the syntax was wrong after I did that. So I just copied it over here and said, fix the syntax. It fixed that syntax. There was a closed parentheses here that was left over from that text function. GPT is really great at syntax, so it grabbed that and just gave us the correct syntax here. I was able to bring that right back over to the formula. I pasted that in and saved it. Got no errors after I made that save. We were so close. No big deal. So I saved that. I went over back to the lead, and I haven't had time to go through all the test scenarios, but I'll say that the lead score immediately changed to represent the new formula that we have in place here that looks at all of the different fields to calculate that B2B lead score. What a fun event. That was so awesome. I was so glad that we were able to do that. And there was so much more I wanted to cover, but we ran out of time, and that's how it goes. But I think we covered a lot. All right, let's dive into our AMA. We've got a few people in the chat here, so yeah, I just wanted to host this after the event so that we can go through and answer some questions. Typically we have these demo events, and then there's just not enough time to get to everybody's questions. So yeah, Gerard said, yeah, it flew by for sure. It flew by. I mean, I felt like I was just rolling. Um, it was a lot of fun though, so I'm really glad we did it. Amazing session. Thank you. So, thanks everyone. So, were there any questions? I know there were tons of questions in the chat, and I wish I could grab that chat and bring it on over here and just go through it. So I'll just stay on as long as there are questions. If we run out of questions, then we will just drop. So if there aren't any questions, sort of the timer starts now. Um, Session was awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, it was amazing to see different capabilities and perspectives. Right. And imagine in your role, you're going throughout your typical day. I want you to start thinking about how you can insert GPT technology, or you can say ChatGPT, whatever tool you end up using, to speed up the process for work that you perform. You don't even have to speed it up because at first it's going to be slow, so it won't feel like you should go to the tool. But as you get familiar with it, as you bring requests to it, as you understand how it's going to respond to you, you'll start to get a feel for how it really can speed up your process. And as you practice that, it will happen. Even if it didn't speed up your process, you're going through different possible solutions more often. You're having to, as a professional, you almost start to fine tune your skill because you're having to take solutions presented to you from an assistant. You're evaluating those solutions and then making decisions on whether or not you're going to act upon the information that you got back from GPT. um, that process is so important for you as a professional, to know the right solutions, but then also to go and know when solutions are incorrect. It takes skill, and I think it's really important. So, can we create diagrams like um, BPM, et cetera, using? I'll just pop it up here, using ChatGPT. So the current functionality I've seen, and this is prior to plugins. So plugins are coming on GPT. They're not here yet, but plugins are absolutely going to change the landscape of how we use GPT when they go public. You can look up videos on plugins today. Those are going to be key for creating diagrams and charting and really great material. I'll tell you, in the training we do have like a really, this is kind of a rough way to create a flow diagram. So if you've got, say, like a blurb of text, or let's say it's a blurb, you just sat down with a stakeholder, a process owner maybe, and you've just taken a bunch of notes about their process and how things connect in the process and what the inputs are, what the outputs are, and the tools that you need to be successful inside the process and where those fit in. You can take that as a prompt and go to GPT and input that. And if you ask for, I forget the, gosh, I'd have to pull it up. Give me just a second. I'll take a dive into our material here and see what we guide for. So yeah, so if you take that to GPT and you go to, there is a, yeah, it's mermaid. So it sounds odd, but you can get some really cool rudimentary process flows out of this thing called mermaid. I'll go to the site just to give you the link. So mermaid live edit. Oh, you know what? And it's got my. So I'm just gonna drop this in the chat. So this is an extremely rudimentary way to get a process flow. But even with this alone, even before plugins, if you use a site like this, so you can go to GPT, paste in that blob of text that's like, hey, here's how certain processes are interacting, and then ask for the code, ask for the specifically the mermaid code. Go over to this mermaid site and you can paste that in, and then there you can it will actually, using that code, display in some sort of format this sort of rough looking process flow. Now, that's not something you're going to copy and paste and send in a document to a client, but maybe it's just you and someone else reviewing it. And you want to just really quickly generate something that can take that text and turn it to a nice visual that you can sort of talk through that process. And maybe you just give it back to the process owner and say, hey, does this reflect kind of what you told me? And you can use it like that. Now, I'll mention that you will get errors with that sort of code as well, just like you saw with solutioning for formulas and validation rules and other things for GPT inside of Salesforce. You're going to get errors in that code as well, so you have to do a little bit of effort going back and forth and solutioning for those error codes as well. um, can't post message sometimes, no worries. But that's how you can use a program like GPT and mermaid to give you a really fast flow diagram for interactive processes and your interaction of certain processes. um, cool. Okay, so we got a LinkedIn user posting something. I'm not going to go to that right now. But if there are any other questions based on the clicked session, we can certainly talk about that. I'll mention, let's see, what else on the click session was a big deal that I didn't get to. Oh, yes. So just looking at my document here, training slide bullets. So let's say you just watched us go through that entire session, and you are now to the point where you've got your RDO set up, you've got your quote request sent out, maybe you've gone through and done solutions, and it's time to prepare some training material. You can actually ask GPT for sort of bullet points for training. So you can do that as well. Bullet points for training, and it will spit out what can be used as sort of, I think you can actually even import it into like Microsoft PowerPoint, but even if not, you can copy and paste those bullet points and let that be the initial general structure of your request. So that's something you can do as well. Also, for the project, you can start to work on your admin manual documentation. So let's say part of your deliverable was to produce some documents on how to use or how to uh, how to pass off that knowledge to the next or potentially current admins at the organization. You can start to work on that documentation as well. That's a part of your solutioning for those requirements. We went through those test scripts. Those were a little bit rough, but you could see us getting closer and closer really quickly to producing really nice test scripts. I didn't want to copy and paste any preconceived prompts. I wanted you to see it live, and I wanted you to see the challenge that you're going to face as you get into utilizing GPT for the first time for your role. Um, it's hard. It's really hard. There are a ton of prompts out there. So preconditioned prompts where if you're going to solution for a specific thing, like the slides, the PowerPoints for the bullet points for the slide PowerPoint, or in this case, it'd be the test scripts that we were looking at. There are and we've got some promoted prompts that you can use that make it really quick. So if this is something that you're doing once a week or once a month, you could just go grab the prompt, plug it in, and then plug in the additional information you have. Boom, you'll have the response right away. You don't have to go back over that learning phase that you went through for the first time that you used it. Okay, let me just check the chat here for any more questions or comments or thoughts on the training. Really helpful link. Cool. Yeah, look it up, check it out. It's not amazing. I mean, it's just something. It's the first step up. And if you get familiar with doing something like that, then when the plugins for GPT-4 roll out, when GPT-4 rolls out, you'll have a good feel for what you can do already. You know, the capability. You'll have a good feel for how to prompt GPT to get the information you need to go get that flow diagram. So you'll have that leg up, and you don't have to wait. Another visual language. Thanks, Beth. Hey, Beth. Cool. Thanks so much. Yeah. GPT can code in. It's more natural language, so a little easier. I'll just pop that up here. So awesome comments from a certified GPT specialist, Beth Lyons, um, just promoting another tool, visual language GPT can code in. That's awesome. Easy to read and interpret if you're not a coder. Awesome. So thanks, Beth, so much for sharing that with the group here. I'm sure I'm going to leave that up on the screen for a few minutes so everyone can have an opportunity to read it and have that as a takeaway. Let's see if there's anything else I didn't go over in the live that I really wanted to hit. Um, we didn't go through the entire iteration of brainstorming for all of those 4 requirements, but I think you saw in that first brainstorming session how GPT will just spit out what seems like anything, right? There were some in there where I actually didn't know. I got responses back for options for solutioning for requirements where I wasn't really sure what the topic was. You know, what is this really a Salesforce thing? And so I went through and checked to see, like, you can actually, at this point, you can leave the tool GPT to go sort of do your fact check, right? Because if you're approaching with zero knowledge on a topic, you shouldn't just take the information you get and run with it, unless it's something you can sort of fact check as you go. You know, like if you go, um, you know, paste your validation rule and you hit go and it just doesn't work. Well, that's an easy way to know if GPT was wrong or not. But if it's something that you don't deal with, then of course you're going to want to fact check that before you carry on. Also, it helps you solidify your new knowledge, right? It's really quick and easy to get new knowledge out of GPT on a particular item that you know nothing about. And then once you have that, you'll have some cool Google search terms right away, or one Google search term. You can just go fact check really quickly. Usually one article pop right up. You can say, yeah, okay, so validated that particular item, and we can move along. Yeah, cool. Networking in the chat. Awesome. All right. So if there are no other questions, nothing else that we didn't answer on the clicked live, we will go ahead and wrap. But just there's so many things that you can do with GPT today. I really hope that as you went through that session, that you really thought through, based on what I'm seeing, based on the capabilities and the execution that I'm seeing today, what are ways that I can start to insert that into my workflow. And I really encourage you, if you haven't done that yet, to actually go in, actually start working on that. At first, it's going to be really challenging. At first, it's going to seem odd that the information you get back isn't just good, perfect responses every time. That's okay. I really encourage you to just stay in there, stick with it. you're going to start to get a feel for how the chat works. You're going to start to get a feel for the types of information that it gets correct, things that it gets wrong, and you just staying engaged for the next month, 2 months, 3 months is going to pay off. You're going to get so much reward for that over time. Beth is in the chat. Beth can absolutely attest to that so far. I think Beth is doing an amazing job at sharing the word about GPT and its capabilities, just different ways you can use it and incorporating it into workflows. So, and I don't mean workflows like pictorial, I mean like your actual daily workflow. There's some really basic ways that you can use GPT, which if you haven't heard about, I'd be surprised. But if you haven't heard about this, like just restructuring an email, if you're spending uh, if you spend 10 minutes on an email and you're just like restructuring, if that sounds like you, that's something that GPT, it's such a basic thing that GPT can help with. Again, caveat, sensitive data, you've got to just scrub that, make sure there's no sensitive data that you drop into GPT. But aside from that, it's a creativity tool that you can use to help you get your job done. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's awesome. I appreciate the comments. The comments like that just like keep driving me. My goal here, my mission is to accelerate the adoption of GPT in the Salesforce ecosystem. So it's like I'll talk, but it doesn't matter unless someone hears it and unless you guys sort of take it and run with it. It's just so important this year. So helpful to begin to think more critically about how to best utilize GPT. Yeah, for sure. So a little personal comment there. Sorry to share, but yeah, I think it is so helpful to begin to think more critically. I think when ChatGPT first came out, it almost just came across as like a flash in the pan. This is kind of neat, like a party trick. But we've moved far beyond that. It's not a flash in the pan. The party trick is over, and now it's all about really using it to solution for Salesforce requirements. In GPT, yeah, great comment here. I'll just throw this up and then we'll wrap in about 2 minutes here. In GPT, you have to be very specific about what you're asking it. Every single word, every single phrase, every single thought that you share with GPT in your request, it impacts the results. And that's bittersweet. If you say something that drives it the wrong direction, well, it's going to go the wrong direction. And now you have to correct for that. So that's the bitter part. But the sweet part is if you get good at your requests, you're going to get what you're looking for. Uh, so the goal is to get good at those requests. So find out how to get good at those requests. That's something we train for. Get good at the request, and it's going to take practice. And you've got to stay in the game. Awesome. Thanks. Thanks so much, everyone. Totally appreciate the time. I hope I was able to answer all the questions. If I didn't and you didn't make it to the live, feel free just to ping me later. I'll be happy just on LinkedIn or whatever channel, or you can email me, and I will be so happy to answer questions. Just want to spread the news about GPT and its capabilities, and I hope you all will share that responsibility with me so that we can all level up at the same time. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll be talking soon. Bye.